I just got off my 7th straight night shift at the hospital last week. I'm 34, and I've been a nurse for over a decade, but those late hours really wear on you. Usually, I handle the overnight shifts just fine, but this one felt different. The halls were quiet, which is normal, but something felt off. It stuck with me afterward. I started my rounds like I always do, checking on patients and making sure everything was running smoothly. The old lights flickered a few times. That's just how it is in a small community hospital. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the beeping machines kept me on edge. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. After a couple of hours, I thought I heard faint laughter. It came from the pediatric ward, and I knew there were no children there. Could it be my mind playing tricks? I had been running low on sleep, but the sound lingered in the air. I moved on, but that laughter echoed in my thoughts. As I continued my rounds, the lights flickered again. I paused in the empty hallway, heart racing. The steady beeping of a nearby machine filled the silence. I shook off the unsettling feeling and walked on, trying to ignore the chill creeping down my spine. Later, in a patient's room, I noticed the wheelchair. It had moved slightly from where I remembered it. I rubbed my eyes, thinking I must have misremembered. But moving closer, I could see it wasn't in the same spot. I felt cold, like a draft had just passed. Tiredness hit me hard, so I dismissed it just being my mind. Things only got stranger. It felt like cold spots followed me as I walked through the hospital. I shared my experiences with my co-workers, but they laughed. "You need more coffee, Megan," one joked. I didn't want to look dramatic or paranoid, so I kept quiet about it after that. Then I went to check the pediatric ward again. I heard that laughter once more. Soft, but unmistakable. My heart raced as I stepped closer to the door. Part of me was terrified, but I needed to know what was going on. I opened the door slowly. The room was dark and empty, thick air surrounding me. For a moment I thought I saw movement, just a flash at the corner of my eye. When I turned, nothing was there. Then I heard it again. A giggle. I froze, unsure if I should step further in. I thought I saw a shape, a small shadow dart past the bed. Then it disappeared. I shut the door behind me, breathless and confused. What was happening? I backed away, glancing over my shoulder at the empty hallway. That's when I noticed something behind me. My heart raced as I turned slowly. The empty wheelchair moved slightly, as if pushed by unseen hands. I stood there, rooted to the spot, waiting for the next chill that whispered through the darkness. Then I heard something. A voice from the corner of the room, a child's voice asking, "Why are you here?" I spun around, and the laughter returned, echoing off the walls. I didn't know what to do. I just knew I had to leave, but the room felt like it was locking me in. My instincts kicked in, and I bolted from that room. I didn't stop until I reached the nurse's station. My breath came in ragged gasps as I leaned against the wall, trying to steady myself. The familiar noise of the beeping machines felt comforting, yet eerie after what I had just experienced. I grabbed a cup of coffee, hoping the hot liquid would warm my chilled bones. My mind raced. Should I tell someone? I thought about the laughter, the voice, the moving wheelchair. No one would believe me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing my mind. As I stood there, something caught my eye through the corner window. The flickering lights of the hospital parking lot illuminated a figure. I squinted, but the shadows obscured everything. A part of me wanted to find out who it was, but fear kept me rooted to the spot. I felt the chill again, a cold breeze that seemed to sweep through the station. I decided to check on the pediatric ward one more time, even though a voice inside me screamed not to. What if it was just my imagination? I couldn't help but think I needed to face it. If there was someone in the hospital at this hour, I needed to know. Cautiously, I made my way down the dimly lit corridor. With every step I felt the oppressive atmosphere envelop me. The laughter echoed again, louder this time, as if it was inviting me in. By the time I reached the pediatric ward, my heart raced again, but I felt strangely compelled to open the door. I pushed it open and the room was still dark. I flipped the light switch and the fluorescent lights buzzed to life. The room was empty, but I could still feel something. A tangible tension filled the air. I scanned the room once more, and that's when I saw it. A small toy on the floor. It wasn't just any toy, it was a stuffed animal. A teddy bear, its fur worn and eyes dull. I didn't remember seeing it before. My mind raced with questions. Where had it come from? Was it connected to the laughter? Suddenly the laughter changed, a ringing giggle that echoed not just in the room but inside my head. "Help me!" a voice called. But it wasn't just a whisper. It was louder, more desperate. My body froze. The bear seemed to shift slightly, as if it had been nudged by unseen hands. I stepped back, the realization crashing down on me. Someone, or something, was trying to reach out. Was it a child? Was it a ghost? Tension spiked through me as I glanced over my shoulder at the quiet hallway. The lights began to flicker again, this time pulsing with urgency. I felt my chest tighten. I had to leave. I turned to run, but then I heard it again. "Help me!" This time it was close, a breath away, and panic surged through me. As I raced for the door, everything went dark. The lights went out completely, leaving me in pitch blackness. I fumbled for the exit, but an overwhelming wave of fear gripped me. I could feel something approaching, but I couldn't see what it was. I needed to get out, but now it felt like the hospital itself was closing in around me. I stumbled around in the dark, my heart pounding in my chest like a trapped bird. I held my breath, listening intently for any sound in the thick silence. Each second felt like an eternity. I reached out, feeling for the door. The cold metal handle seemed distant, teasingly out of reach. Suddenly I heard it again, a soft giggle as if it were right next to me. Panic spiraled in my veins. I felt for the wall, my fingers brushing against the cool surface, guiding me. I pushed forward, fear propelling me until my hand collided with the door. I pulled it open, nearly tumbling into the corridor. Light spilled in from the nurse's station, but something felt off. The usual warm glow was muted, casting unsettling shadows. The laughter had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I didn't want to go back, but a force tugged at me. I needed to know what was happening. I hesitated at the threshold, then took a deep breath and stepped back into the hallway. The air felt thicker than before. As I walked, the lights overhead flickered again, and for a moment I thought I saw a figure at the far end. My pulse quickened. I was being watched. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice shaky. No answer, just the echo of my own words bouncing back at me. I moved cautiously forward, each step deliberate. There was no laughing now, only the weight of heavy silence. As I approached a junction in the hallway, I noticed a door slightly ajar, the pediatric ward. My heart dropped. It swung in and out like someone was pushing it, and I could feel the pull of curiosity mixed with dread. Did something want me to go in? Against my better judgment, I pushed the door open wider. The room was empty just as before, but the lights flickered erratically, casting unsettling shadows across the walls. I scanned the room for the toy. The teddy bear was gone. A cold dread settled in my stomach. It wasn't just my imagination. Someone had been here. The hairs on my neck stood on end. I stepped further in, my breath catching in my throat as I caught sight of a faint outline in the corner. A child? I squinted, trying to discern the figure. Thin, pale, too fragile to be real. Then I saw it. A little hand reached out from behind the curtain. "Help me," the voice whispered, softer than before. The air became electric, a heavy pressure suffocating me as I fought the instinct to flee. I stepped closer. "What do you need?" I breathed, equal parts fear and compassion surging through me. And just like that, the lights went out again, plunging me into darkness. But this time I felt the delicate touch on my arm, a gentle pull that sent tremors through my entire body. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I was tethered to that fragile sound, the tiny hand gripping my arm tighter. "Please," it breathed. Before I could respond, the lights flickered back on. Just for a brief, blinding moment, In that instant, I glimpsed the child's face and felt my breath hitch. That's when I realized. I recognized those eyes. I blinked hard, trying to process what I had just seen. The child's face was familiar, etched into my memory like a photograph. It couldn't be. I stumbled back, my mind racing with disbelief. "No, it can't be you," I whispered, grappling with the knot of emotions tightening in my chest. The figure behind the curtain didn't move, but I could still feel the chill in the air. I forced myself to take another step back, my heart pounding louder than the thoughts swirling in my head. What was a child doing here? The pediatric ward had been closed since that tragic night. They wouldn't let anyone in. "Please don't go," the voice pleaded, echoing in the stillness. It held desperation that made my skin crawl. Everything in me screamed to run, but I couldn't let go. I needed to find out the truth, even if it terrified me. I took a deep breath and approached the curtain again, my hand shaking as I grasped the fabric. The moment I pulled it aside, I was met not with a clear view of the child, but a wall of fog, thick and swirling like a hidden secret. I squinted, trying to see beyond the haze. "Help me!" the voice cried again, this time stronger, more insistent. It wasn't just a plea, it felt like a demand. I remembered a time when I last heard that voice, filled with life and laughter. It was my sister's voice. She hadn't been the same since the accident. "No," I gasped, stepping back again. This was too much. The memories flooded in and I felt the walls closing in. But as I turned to flee, I heard her again. The sound reverberated through the empty space, a desperate call that gripped my heart. "Stay with me." Suddenly the lights flickered again, and without warning the fog dissipated. I was met not only with the curtain but with a group of toys scattered on the floor. Toy cars, a doll with one eye, and a small ball. The room felt colder, the air thick with tension. I could feel a presence lingering, watching. Then I saw it. On the wall opposite me, a shadow shifted. Something moved just out of sight, then darted behind the door. I could barely breathe. I had to know. I ran to the door, yanking it open. The corridor beyond was empty, but the lights flickered again. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step into the hallway. Out of the corner of my eye I caught another movement, a flash of white. I turned to look but found nothing. The silence felt heavy, but it was broken by a soft whisper that made my blood run cold. "Help us." I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. This wasn't just a child, it was a warning. Something dark lurked here, I had to leave. The terror seeped into my bones, urging me to escape. But as I turned to run, I heard the creak of the door closing behind me. It didn't just shut. It locked. My breath caught as panic surged. I was trapped, and whatever was happening was about to unfold. Now I had to figure a way out before the shadows closed in entirely. The door was locked tight, and my heart thudded against my ribs. I pulled at the handle, desperation fueling my movements. It wouldn't budge. I was truly trapped. Just then, a familiar voice echoed in my head, urging me to find a way out. If only I could remember every detail of that night. I turned away from the door, scanning the dim hallway. The flickering lights created a ghostly atmosphere, illuminating fragments of peeling paint and dust. Yet, shadows danced along the walls, taunting me with their unpredictable movements. I needed a plan, but the stirring fear only clouded my thoughts. "Help us." The whisper returned, more insistent now. I followed its call, feeling irresistibly drawn forward. Maybe the voice belonged to someone else, another child lost like my sister. I couldn't leave them behind. I moved deeper into the hallway, passing old hospital rooms that sat in stillness. Doors were slightly ajar, creaking softly as I moved. Each step felt heavy, the floor giving small protests underfoot. I glanced into one room, a bed draped with a thin white sheet, an abandoned pediatric toy resting under the nightstand. As I peered inside, a flicker of movement caught my eye. At the end of the hall, a shadowy figure stood, its outline unclear. My instincts shouted at me to run, but I felt frozen in place. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its gaze piercing through the darkness. "Wait!" I screamed, my voice echoing. Please, I just want to help. But the figure didn't respond. It just turned and disappeared around the corner. I hesitated, torn between flight and curiosity. I didn't want to be reckless, but I couldn't ignore the pull in my gut. I followed cautiously, creeping down the hallway, each breath both shaky and shallow. I rounded the corner, and that's when I saw it. A door stood slightly ajar, a soft glow emanating from within. The shadow was gone, but an eerie calm settled over the air. Compelled by something I couldn't explain, I pushed the door open. Inside was not just any room. It was a small playroom, filled with colorful decor and toys. But it was strange. The room seemed untouched since the night it was closed. I stepped inside, the distant whispers fading momentarily. My eyes landed on a bulletin board cluttered with drawings and messages from children, each adorned with dates. As I examined them, the last dates filled me with dread. They were from years ago, all leading to the night the pediatric ward had been sealed. And right at the bottom, scrawled in messy handwriting, was a clear message. We are still here. Just then the lights flickered again, dimming, and the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic swelling as the room began to shift. The whispers crescendoed, becoming a chorus of cries. I felt hot breath on my neck and turned to see nothing. But then, the shadows pooled together at the far side of the room, forming a figure. A child. My heart sank as recognition washed over me. It was my sister. "Help me," she pleaded, her eyes wide and lost. I reached out, but as I did, the shadows surged closer, enveloping her in darkness. I gasped, feeling a force pressing against me, threatening to pull me in too. I had to get out. Now. I stumbled back, the weight of dread crashing over me. My sister's face blurred with the encroaching shadows. I felt the warmth of the playroom slip away, replaced by an icy grip on my heart. "No!" I shouted, fighting against the surge of darkness. I turned towards the door, but it was no longer an option. It had sealed shut with an almost unnatural force. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of pleas and laughter echoing from the walls, twisting into one chilling sound. "Join us," they pleaded. I couldn't tell if they were angry or trying to comfort me. All I knew was that I didn't want any part of this. My gaze darted around the room, searching for an escape. The corners felt like they were closing in. I spotted a window, small and dusty, just above the toy chest. It was a long shot, but I had to try. I dashed to it, pushing aside a tattered teddy bear that seemed to be watching me. With shaky hands, I fumbled at the window latch. It wouldn't budge. I heard the shadows moving behind me, creeping and whispering, urging me to give in to despair. My breath quickened as I pressed my weight against the window, but the frame held firm. Suddenly a shrill laugh echoed from behind me. I whipped around to see more figures emerging from the shadows, each resembling children I did not recognize. They circled my sister, their pale faces illuminated by the ghostly glow of the playroom. "Don't leave us," one of them cried, pointing a finger at me. "You can play forever." Panic coursed through my veins. "I'm trying to help," I shouted, my voice trembling. But it felt useless against their haunting eyes that seemed to glow with an unnatural light. I noticed the bulletin board again. The drawings looked clearer now. Beneath the single desperate plea, I saw other messages. "Play with us. Stay forever," and one chilling drawing of a child trapped inside a dark box with a single word scrawled across it. Locked. The realization hit me like a punch. They were all waiting for someone to join their lost parade. They didn't want to be alone, and now they were trying to pull me into their trap. I backed away slowly, my heart racing, feeling the draft from the window despite it being shut tight. "Leave her alone!" I heard my sister's voice break through, stronger now. "You're not like them." Her words struck a nerve. I had to focus on her. "I won't let them take you!" I yelled, my voice cutting through the chaos. That's when everything shifted. The shadows began to writhe angrily. My sister extended her hand, beckoning me closer. "You have to pull me out. I don't belong here." The room quaked, rattling walls and furniture. I dashed back to her side, my fingers brushing against the darkness that encircled her. Frantically, I grabbed her wrist, feeling a coldness that sent shivers racing down my spine. As I pulled, the shadows recoiled momentarily, letting out a pitchy scream that reverberated through the room. But the grip around my sister tightened, as if the darkness was fighting back. I needed to act fast. With every ounce of strength I had, I shouted, "We're leaving!" The echoes of my voice seemed to strike the shadows like a whip. And then I felt it. A sudden jolt, as if an unseen force was tearing us apart. I could almost glimpse beyond the veil of darkness. The real world was waiting just beyond. "Hold on!" I cried out, yanking with everything I had. But just then, a new sound filled the air. A loud thud echoed from the other side of the door. A single glimmer of hope surged through me, but uncertainty gripped me just as tightly. "Someone's here," I whispered to my sister, desperate for the help that might finally break the darkness. I felt a rush of adrenaline as the thud repeated, louder this time. It was followed by a scraping sound, like something being dragged across the floor. My heart raced. "Stay here," I whispered to my sister. But even as I said it, I knew she couldn't stay. Not like this. The children in the shadows noticed the noise too, their faces twisted with growing anger. "Leave," they screamed, their voices blending into a single, guttural roar. Their hands reached out towards me, each touch seeming to sap my strength. "Help," I called, desperation coating my voice. The thud continued, relentless. Whoever was outside could hear me, could save us. "Don't let them take you," my sister shouted back, her eyes wide with fear. "You can't give in." With renewed determination, I pulled harder, my fingers digging into her wrist like a vice. The shadows hissed, spitting curses I couldn't decipher. I didn't care. I couldn't stop now. The doorknob rattled. Someone was out there. Someone alive. "Hold on. I'm almost—" My words faltered as I jerked again, sending a shock of cold through me. The shadows clung to my sister, fighting back with a ferocity I hadn't expected. Then it all went still. The children froze, their once animated faces now eerily blank. I glanced towards the door, desperate for a glimpse of the rescuer. But all I saw was a fading shimmer of light slipping through the cracks of the sealed door, and then it happened. The shadows let out a soul-piercing wail that shook the very foundation of the room. The walls trembled, and I staggered back, losing my grip on my sister. In a panic, I lunged for her again, but the darkness slithered around her like a serpent, pulling her deeper into its suffocating embrace. "Please don't go," I shouted. I could feel tears spilling down my cheeks. The weight of my helplessness crashed down on me, but then, right as I felt myself breaking, the door burst open. Light poured in, bright and blinding. I squinted against it. A figure stood silhouetted against the brightness, a hand outstretched towards me. "Get her out!" "Help me!" I shouted, lunging toward him. But as I moved, the shadows shifted and hissed, fighting to keep what they wanted most. I felt a rush of air as the figure came closer, and the light grew even stronger. "Now," he commanded, his voice sharp yet soothing. I grabbed my sister's trembling hand. With one last powerful tug, I pulled her towards the light, towards safety. The darkness screamed louder than ever, thrashing around us, but I couldn't focus on it. That was when I realized. A moment of clarity pierced through my panic. The dark figures were terrified. They weren't just trying to keep us. They were terrified of being alone again. I breathed in deeply, gathering the last of my courage. "You don't have to be alone," I said, and the moment hung in the air before me. All at once the shadows shuddered, and the light surged forward, swallowing the room. But just before we crossed the threshold, I caught one final sight, one of the children looking at me, eyes wide and filled with what looked like yearning. And then we were through, tumbling into the light. I gasped as the darkness recoiled behind us. We were out, but I knew this wasn't over. The shadows were still there, lurking. They wouldn't give up easily, and somehow, I had to find a way to help them too. But first, we needed to escape. A new threat loomed. "What's going on?" I breathed, spinning to meet the figure who had saved us. What were they after? I blinked against the brightness of the figure before me. He looked familiar, yet I couldn't place him. What just happened? I gasped, still clutching my sister's hand. The sudden shift from darkness to light left me dizzy. We need to move quickly, the figure said, scanning our surroundings. His voice was low, urgent. The shadows will come after you. They won't let you go that easily. Who are you? I asked, my heart still racing. And where are we? You're in a safe place for now, but I can't explain everything here. We need to find shelter. He pointed down a dimly lit corridor that stretched out behind him, shadows flickering at the edges. Before I could respond, my sister tugged at my arm. I want to go home, she cried, her voice trembling. She looked small and frightened against the looming figure. We can't go home yet, I whispered, crouching down to her eye level. We have to help those kids. I don't think they wanted to hurt us. The figure glanced at me, his brow furrowed. They are not just children anymore. They've become something else, something that feeds off fear. If you keep thinking like that, they will find you again. I gripped my sister's hand tighter. But I can't abandon them. They need help. Help comes in different forms, he replied. Your compassion can be a weakness here, but understanding how to control it is key. His words hung heavy between us as we started to move down the corridor, the oppressive atmosphere wrapping around us like a shroud. I took a breath, hoping to find the strength to confront whatever was ahead. Every step echoed ominously. The walls felt narrow, as though they were closing in on us. I hesitated and looked back. The door we had escaped through was now a mere speck of light, fading fast. My heart sunk. Keep walking, he urged, glancing back at me. Trust me. As we hurried along, I noticed faint whispers echoing from the walls, words muffled and indistinct. You hear that? I asked, fear creeping into my voice. The figure nodded grimly. They're close. Suddenly, a rush of cold air swept through, and the whispers grew louder, blending into a cacophony that made my head spin. Something was wrong. My mind raced with confusion. What do they want? I shouted over the noise. They want to pull you back. He turned sharply, holding a hand up in warning. Stay with me. Do not look back. But then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A shadow darted down the corridor, a figure just out of reach, growing larger as it approached. I felt my heart skip. What is that? That's when I saw it. Eyes, bright and glowing in the dark, fixated on me. The whispers reached a frenzied pitch and I froze, panic surging through me. Now! The figure yelled, shoving me forward at the last moment. I stumbled, breaking free from the spell the shadow had cast over me, and ran, dragging my sister with me. But as I glanced back for the last time, I caught sight of something horrifying. The child we had seen in the dark was behind the shadow figure, but this time it was smiling. And just like that, the shadows closed in again. We ran deeper into the corridor, the figure guiding us with a firm grip on my sister's hand. I could hear the shadow's whispers grow louder, laced with urgency. It felt like they were just behind us, ready to swallow us whole. Where are we going? I gasped, fighting to keep my breath steady. What's down here? Places where they can't reach us, he replied, though his voice held a tremor of uncertainty. For now, just trust me. I squeezed my sister's hand, feeling her small fingers tremble. We'll be okay, I reassured her, though I didn't believe it myself. My mind raced with memories of those children, their hollow eyes. I have to help them, I said quietly. No. The figure's eyes flashed with intensity. You don't understand. They're not just lost. They're predators now. They will use your compassion against you. Suddenly, the corridor opened up into a vast room dimly lit and cluttered with shadows. Tall stacks of crates towered around us, and something cold and metallic clanged in the distance, echoing eerily against the walls. Get behind me, he instructed, stepping into the room like it was a battlefield. I instinctively pulled my sister close, her small body trembling against mine. The figure stood tall, scanning the shadows that crept along the edges of the room. We need to find a way out, he murmured. If we can get to the other side. Before he could finish, a figure emerged from the darkness on the far end of the room, It was another child, barefoot, wild hair, and clothes tattered. The child's face was streaked with dirt, but the moment I saw those glowing eyes, an awful chill ran down my spine. "Come play with us," the child said in a sing-song voice. "No." The figure stepped forward, shielding us. "Stay back." But the child didn't stop. Others began to emerge from the shadows behind them. A group of grim faces formed, each one more haunting than the last. They advanced, their eyes fixed on us, smiles spreading wider as they drew closer. "What do we do?" I whispered frantically. "Don't let them get into your mind," he cautioned, his voice strained. "Focus on your sister." I looked down at my sister, who was now shaking violently. "Please, I need you to stay close to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Then everything went dark. I blinked, the shadows almost swallowing us. Panic surged as I reached out, but I felt nothing but air. "Where are you?" I called out into the void. A frantic rustling echoed. "I'm here." My sister's voice felt far away. "I can't see." "Hold on to my voice," I shouted, my heart racing. "We'll find each other." And then a scream, sharp and high-pitched, cut through the darkness. It wasn't just any scream. It was the sound of a child in torment. I froze, a wave of dread washing over me. "Help!" I heard the figure shout above the chaos, desperation lacing his words. "You need to embrace the fear." But all I could feel was terror crashing over me like waves. I squeezed my eyes shut, unsure of what came next. Would I find my sister? Would we escape this nightmare? And then, a figure loomed in the darkness. It was small and shadowy, moving closer. I braced myself, ready for whatever horror awaited. But instead of a scream, I heard a familiar, playful giggle. "Come play with us." The chill in the air worsened as I strained to hear any sound beyond the ominous whispers swirling around me. "Come play with us." The words dripped like honey, laced with something sinister. I clutched my sister's hand tighter, reminding myself that we had escaped once before. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness. It was as if a door cracked open just enough to shed light into this hellish void. Hope surged through me. Could it be a way out? "Stay close," I whispered, pulling my sister along. The glee-filled laughter of the shadows echoed behind us, a cacophony of childlike delight twisted into a haunting melody. I pushed that sound away, focusing only on the light. "Keep moving," the figure barked, his voice steady, driven by urgency and something like fear. I didn't know who he truly was, but in this moment, he felt like our only chance for survival. The darkness surged around us, swirling like a storm, but we pressed on. The light ahead dimmed and brightened in waves, guiding us toward it like a lighthouse in a tempest. Together we navigated through the unrelenting abyss of despair and whispers that urged me to give in, to be entranced by their call. But I wouldn't let them win. Not my sister. Not again. As we stumbled towards the growing light, I could feel the weight of them at our backs closing in with intent that chilled my bones. The shadow children formed shapes, jagged and twisted, their faces becoming grotesque masks of joy. "Join us! Don't leave!" they called, reaching out with claw-like fingers. I turned to see the figure blocking our path, stern and resolute, yet the shadows threatened to force him aside. "Focus! Don't look at them!" He pushed us onward. Just beyond the threshold of light, something unexpected appeared. A door, ancient and wooden, warped with age but marked by numerous scratches and stamps of a life once lived. "Get to that door," he shouted. With the laughter crescendoing into an unsettling cacophony, I sprinted forward, each step heavy. The bright light slowly dimmed, as if the shadows were swallowing it behind us, but somehow it felt transformative. Bursting into the light made me feel more alive, and yet dread pooled in my stomach. What lay behind that door? We raced toward it, knocking into it hard enough for the wood to cut into my palms, but I didn't care. I pushed against it, desperate. Open! The door swung wide, revealing a sunlit corridor beyond, bathed in warm hues that wrapped around us like a comforting blanket. I half expected the shadow children to reach out, to drag me back into the darkness. But instead they hesitated. recoiling as if the light burned them. "No, stay!" they screamed, their voices dissonant, filled with an echoing loss that gripped my heart. But I didn't turn back. We stumbled through the threshold, blinking into the brightness, the ghastly laughter now more like a whisper carried away by the wind. "Don't let go," I whispered to my sister, swearing I would protect her through anything, even the spectral horrors from which we had escaped. The figure had stepped through as well, his presence lingering as the door slammed shut behind us. The noise sealed the past away, but the weight of what we had encountered stayed heavy in the air. "What's happening?" my sister breathed, looking around with wide eyes. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we're safe for now." The corridor stretched long before us, but the beginnings of hope pushed against the walls of despair that threatened to pull me under. I turned to the figure, who now seemed less imposing. "What do we do now?" He met my eyes, shadows falling across his face in a mournful dance. "This is just a reprieve. The shadows are still out there, still searching for you. They won't forget what you've seen or what you feel." My heart sank at his words, but something in me stirred. "But we escaped. They don't have power over us anymore." For a moment he faltered, a flicker of empathy passing through his eyes. "You're right, but it's not about power. It's about their hunger. They want to steal your light, your ability to care. We need to figure out how to stop them." I glanced back at the door, at the shadows beyond it that now faded into the distance. "I want to help them, you know," I confessed, recalling the faces that had lingered in my thoughts. They were just kids trapped in something dark. "Compassion can be both a strength and a weakness," he replied. "The choice to confront that darkness will always lie ahead." I nodded slowly, realizing he was right. The encounters had changed me. No matter how I tried to ignore it, a thread still connected to that darkness lingered. But first we need to get far away from here. There has to be a way to find answers without them reaching us again. "Follow me," he said, and together, we started down the hallway, leaving the shadows behind for the moment. But I couldn't shake the nagging thought that once we felt safe, their whispers would beckon again. I struggled to keep my resolve steady, knowing there was still more to confront. I took each step with purpose. Nothing was settled, and as much as I wanted to think the darkness was behind us, the lingering connection remained, a flame promising not to be extinguished so easily. I moved forward, uncertainty mingling with a sense of purpose. I might not find all the answers, but I would find a way to face whatever came next. As we walked further into the unknown, one thing stood clear. My sister and I would not be lost again.